Okay, I was just pulling out of the Beechworth Bakery where I've had a meat pie and something sweet for an early lunch. I'm still in the city of Bendigo, which is one of the great colonial cities of Australia, particularly Victoria, with lots of colonial architecture, all stolen from the local indigenous people. And right beneath my feet, about a kilometre down, are a whole bunch of tunnels which contain gold mines. Now, those gold mines have been the reason for the wealth of this place for a very, very long time. And there's lots of old houses here. And it's kind of resurged lately as an art precinct because a lot of old cities do that. They have economic collapses and then they suddenly turn into art precincts. And this place is doing that. All of these old houses now, of course, are worth a lot of money, and possibly because they're well made. But very hilly city, Bendigo. Not for people who like jogging, for instance, because you're going to soon wear yourself out. But all these little corner shops are turning into cafes, the ones that haven't turned into very ugly real estate agencies. But yeah, so I like Bendigo, though I always seem to come here when it's really cold for reasons I simply don't know. But what I've got to do is I've got to get back on the main road now because I'm heading home. I've actually hit 8 op shops while driving around this town. And I've gone to some really weird places. There was one place, one shopping centre, which seemed like a time warp of the 1990s, architecturally, and the kinds of shops it had. It had a very freaky 1990s vibe where you expected to see all of the guys not having any sideburns and listening to Ricky Martin. It's one of those kind of places, and kind of messed me up a little bit because I was just a tiny bit tired because I've been driving around. And then I come to this place and go, where am I? What the hell is this? And so that happened, and it did do my head in a little bit, because when you start out really early, and I started out before the sun was anywhere near the sky, and so it did mess me up more than just a little bit. Now, if I can get across all this traffic, I'll be intensely happy. Don't usually do a vlog while driving around. It's kind of fun. Don't know whether I'll do it much more, though, because I really have to concentrate on this driving business. Funny fact about me, I didn't learn how to drive till I was in my 40s, because when middle-aged geek girl and I hooked up, she said, you've got to learn how to drive. And I went, okay. And I just missed my opportunity there. So I did the driving lessons. She drove me around for a bit. I took formal driving lessons. I only damaged a couple of cars and got my license. So for the last 20 mumble years, I've really enjoyed the freedom of driving. And as a mature, at least in years, human being, I kind of enjoy the freedom of it and driving around. And doing drives like this are a mental health thing for me, because my mental health does need a little bit of TLC at times. And so I go for long country drives and listen to crazy music and just enjoy myself. Now, we're now in a place called Golden Square, and Golden Square, of course, is an indicative name because gold mines are all over the place, away from the main roads. But if you go out anywhere, you're going to find holes in the ground where people dug up gold in the 19th century and mostly shipped it to England for reasons known only to people who dig imperialism. There we go. Melbourne, 148 kilometres. I'm not quite going to Melbourne, but I'm going on my side of town, which is the closest side of town, to get home and probably take a nap. But I did pick up some good movies, and I made a decision while I was hunting through dusty op shops, listening to really old Bobby Goldsboro songs they were playing on the radio, that if I get a DVD, and it's a DVD of a movie that I kind of like, but I'm not in love with. So, and there are a few of those that I picked up today, some movies that are quite good fun, and I would recommend them on and I would recommend them in a video. And we're just coming past a truck full of sheep now, and these trucks always smell bad because the sheep are all cramped up there. They're either going to be relocated or they're going to an abattoir. It's a circle of life. What can you do? If you want pork, if you want lamb chops, that's going to happen. And you get them through country towns. You get two kinds of big trucks through most country towns here in Victoria. You either get logging trucks, where you've got that final destination thing. If you're driving behind them, you're worried about an enormous pole coming through your windshield. Or you get the livestock trucks, which inevitably smell like shit or piss. Sheep are a big thing in Australia. They always were. And when I was working in Williamstown once upon a time, I actually worked for the Navy. I wasn't like a sailor or anything, but I worked for the Navy as a civilian on the Anzac Frigate project. And in Williamstown, where there are now beautiful, posh little shishi apartments, they had a place that cleaned sheepskins. They did it for sheepskin jackets and sheepskin rugs and things like that. And so all of Williamstown, on certain days of the week, smelled really intensely of sheep shit and lanolin because they steam clean the sheepskins. And so all the volatile chemicals come out of them. And so it smells like lanolin and sheep shit. And I didn't mind the smell because I partly grew up on a farm once upon a time. And, I got used to the smells and they never really worried me at all. But, I keep thinking there are a lot of places in Sydney and Melbourne and all sorts of other cities, which in our moment in the third decade of the 21st century, they're all beautiful little shishi apartments where people drink chai lattes and watch Gossip Girl. People still watch Gossip Girl. But back in the day, they were light industrial areas and they had a very interesting olfactory history for that. Now we're now coming up onto a place called Kangaroo Flat, which is, as you can see, fairly flat, and it did have kangaroos. May well still have in the areas because kangaroos are crepuscular creatures. They're only out at dawn and dusk, as far as people know. And so they only get hit by vehicles at dawn and dusk. So if I'm driving in the country, I try to avoid areas where there are a lot of kangaroos and wallabies and swamp wallabies and all of that kind of thing during those hours, because the last thing I want to do is A, damage the car, and B, hurt a macropod. So I won't do that. So Kangaroo Flat, I've already been here and I looked at a couple of the op shops and picked up a couple of interesting things here. And it's one of the poorer areas of Bendigo because rents are cheap here and people want to live on the hilly bits with the cute old houses. But it's not a bad place. I don't mind it at all. It's and it's interesting because the pub shut, which is a weird thing for the edge of a city to have a pub that's shut down and is actually for sale. So if anybody wants to buy the Kangaroo Flat Hotel, they can buy it and do with it as they will. Probably turn it into a gastropub, I suppose. Though I'd much prefer it got turned into a bookshop with a whole bunch of small cinemas attached. But here it is over on the right. You may see it on the camera. It's the Windermere Hotel. The other one is a bit further down. Windermere Hotel looks like it's doing okay. On the left there's the St Vincent de Paul the Vinnies that I picked up a couple of discs at. And over here on the right is the Kangaroo Flat Hotel, which is not the most architecturally wonderful building in town, because basically it's just a roof under which people, indulge in alcohol. But it's now about 11 o'clock in the morning. You can see how dark it stays here in winter. But I did a lot of interesting shopping around and going to weird places in Bendigo I'd never been to. I think all up I did 8 different thrift stores / op shops, in my venture around here. And I got to the 7th or 8th one, maybe in the 7th, just before I did the last one. And I was thinking, I am totally over looking for movies, which is kind of a bit of a revelation for me because I'm usually pretty off for that kind of thing. But no, it's I kind of hit a wall of looking for movies because you go through so many to find so few good ones, or even kind of okay ones. And I was getting disheartened by the fact that I kept seeing millions of Baz Luhrmann movies and Andre Rieu DVDs and other things like that. So we're now coming to the edge of Kangaroo Flat, and over on the left, a little further down, is the first op shop I went to, which is Salvo's. And there were some nice ladies. They were just opening up as I got there. And there were a whole pile of wet clothes sitting on the front step because it's been raining here. They helped them put it into a big bin they were taking out the back. They would have had to dry them out. A nightmare for them. So I helped them move all of their junk clothing that people had just dumped on their front doorstep into this big bin before they opened up the shop. And I found a couple of Blu-rays there, which was kind of nice. I'll probably edit this down somewhat because there's a lot of waffling and there's a lot of looking at the back of P-platers in Kias. But yeah, I do this for mental health. Normally, the Salvos is just over there. Normally, I do a lot longer trips, but I tend to do those in the summertime. In the wintertime, because it is so cold and it's only like 10 degrees centigrade here, and it's quite damp and humid, so it feels like it's a lot colder. I really don't dig doing too much of it in the wintertime. And I think I get a bit of seasonal affect disorder as well, which is never a fun thing. Plus I've got post-traumatic stress disorder, which means that when I get very cold, I get very depressed because I was once homeless in winter in Melbourne and I slept in backyards and things like that in the middle of winter in a greatcoat just curled up on the ground. So that kind of thing hits me, and it's not something that I indulge. I don't kind of wallow in my misery when it happens. I usually find something to do about it, but it's just the price you pay for having multiple layers of complex PTSD, that things are going to hit you and you develop and learn techniques and ways of that stuff not messing you around and not impacting your life in too much of a negative way. And fortunately, I've got a good psychologist and we kind of workshop ways for me to manage these things. See, now we're out of town and we're hitting the bush a bit. It's not a desert around here. It's very much kind of temperate forest areas around Melbourne and around Bendigo. So you get a lot of trees and not too much sand. Now here we are, we're up to 100 kilometres an hour speed limit, which is what I like, and further on it gets up to 110 kilometres an hour, which is even better because it gets me home sooner. And to be honest with you, I'm dying for a good coffee. One of the problems with many, but not all, Victorian country towns is you've got to be basically a truffle pig to find a decent coffee, particularly if you like me and you drink it black. Drinking white coffee with sugar or other sweeteners and things like that in it is always going to hide a really shitty cup of coffee. And if you have a look over there, you'll see a kangaroo sign which warns people the kangaroos are around here. But yeah, so finding a good cup of coffee in the country, you can do it. You can go online and take a look at Google reviews and things like that. You'll find one. But for the most part, it's a very difficult thing to find a coffee that doesn't taste like an ashtray from the 1950s. So yeah, I'm very, very wary of that. I do know some places in some towns that have excellent coffee and the people are really nice and the cafes have a great vibe about them. But if you're in an unfamiliar area, It's incredibly hit and miss. And one of the things I don't want to do when I'm on one of these long mental health drives is have a really shitty cup of coffee that makes my mouth taste bad. Here we go, a bit of a view ahead as we come down over the hills towards Harcourt, which is the place around here which has a ton of apple orchards. It's got the perfect location for growing apples. And so Harcourt apples are great. You get a whole bunch of different species of them. If you go into town and the town is off the highway, you get some really good deals on buying bags full of apples. And particularly in season, they're fantastic. They also do pears and stone fruits at times. But the apples are the big selling points of these guys. But I think I'll leave it there, just showing you the way out of Bendigo. On the way home, going to have a good time getting there. And yeah, it hasn't been a bad day. Didn't find as much stuff as I really wanted to. But that's the luck of the draw. Sometimes we'll find a ton of good stuff. Sometimes we'll find bugger all. But it's good to get out of the place and good to hit the countryside and just clear your head, play some sunshine pop music from the 1960s, and go hunting for the elusive DVD. So I'll catch you guys later.